Hi, Julius. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Really nice to meet you, Justin.
It's very nice to meet you. Thank you for making the time to join us on the Geekcentric podcast. Look, Captain America, the films have always been my favorite. The first one's very much a period piece, but it's the other two that feel very grounded. And I feel like they're excellent examples of mixing genres. You got that espionage vibe, that spy thriller vibe for Winter Soldier and Civil War. This film is introducing some fantastical elements. How do you keep that grounded grit that is so familiar to the Captain America franchise while also bringing in these larger than life MCU elements?
That's a great question. And, it's twofold. First, you start with the characters, and you want to make sure that their emotional journeys are relatable, that they feel authentic, that they feel plausible, and that you can track them over the course of the film. And there's some questions that this movie asks about empathy. There's questions that this movie asks about seeing the good in each other. And that is something that, because this Captain America Sam Wilson's superpower is his empathy, becomes really fun to explore in a genre like a paranoid political thriller that's all about mistrust of individuals, mistrust of institutions. Now he's got to challenge himself and challenge his empathy across a Thaddeus Ross who once imprisoned him but is now president of the United States, who once divided the Avengers that he was a part of with the Sokovia Accords. So you have this rich, authentic, emotional and psychological terrain to play with. That's part of how you ground it. The other part of how you grind it is the filmmaking. And that was
Mhm.
something that, I'm so grateful to Marvel for, in allowing me to look at different types of paranoid, psychological, political thrillers as inspiration for this film. So we started off with conversations about The Day of the Jackal, but then we talked about movies like Point Blank. There's a great Fassbender miniseries, World on a Wire. Somewhat surprisingly, there were a couple contemporary movies that I also looked at, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, and The Great Beauty. Not that those were specifically paranoid thrillers, but they have elements in the way they use their visual language that has a great deal of mystery and tension to them and surprise as well. So I wanted to pluck from all these different places. And it's not that it was a one-to-one with those films. It was just about the accumulation of details in this film that could then create that sense of cinematic tension, yet also authenticity, and lean into the genre in a way that felt fresh and specific to Sam Wilson. So it was those two approaches that I really, really focused on, and then wanted to make sure that they translated across the film. So the last part of that is also that I wanted to shoot the film in a way that stayed consistent. And I said this at the very beginning to everybody at Marvel, that whether it's a visual effects sequence, it had to be driven by the cinematic choices that I was making. So I made sure our digital cameras and our digital lenses were consistent. The way I used the camera was consistent as I was devising previs, working with our previs artists. I made sure that, I wanted a very controlled camera, no use of handheld. So as we started to make stunt viz, that was all stuff that I worked with our stunt and our fight coordinators on. So across the board, everybody embraced the vision that I had and stayed very disciplined to make sure it was a cohesive whole, so that when you get to Tiamat, when you get to Red Hulk, all those things still feel part of the movie that we've been telling from the beginning.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I can tell that there's such a love and passion and care just in how you're talking about it, that you wanted to ensure that those elements were in place to still keep it really, connected. Now, I had an opportunity to talk to Giancarlo Esposito as well today, and I was asking him this question. He joined the film obviously during a time when the production was going through some changes, and joining it in a way to kind of be a whole new character. For yourself, kind of asking something similar, what was it like working on something that was evolving in the moment, and how did Giancarlo's addition kind of influence your final vision for this
Well,
film?
Giancarlo is somebody I've been a massive fan of for a huge time. He's made some pretty seminal films early in his career with Spike Lee. Spike Lee started my career by executive producing my first feature, so it's been a dream come true to work with him. And look, any film that you're making is a process of, experimentation and iteration, even when you have planned and prepared, because you want to keep room for discovery. If we're not getting surprised as storytellers, you're not getting surprised as the audience. Serpent
Yeah.
Society was always a part of the film, and that never changed. But how we were going to translate them from characters in publishing who dress up as snakes with, snake-like appendages to
Yeah.
characters that work in a grounded, as you said, paranoid
Right.
political thriller that can also honor the tradition of Cap movies, where you're always going to find different strategies and approaches work, some better than others. And as we evolved Serpent Society in the film, it became clear that having an actor with the gravitas of somebody like a Giancarlo Esposito would be so integral to making them feel real, so we stay consistent in the tone of the movie we wanted to create and the story we wanted to tell. So that really was the process, but the actual story itself, that was something that has always stayed intact. It was just, how are we going about realizing it? And Giancarlo, came in a way that really helped us cement Serpent Society, and I think audiences, are going to be really excited to see where they go in the MCU going forward.
No, I'm very excited. I'm excited to see his character. We were joking about, being another villain, but he obviously he brings such heart to every villain he's played, where it kind of gives you a sense of understanding. Julius, thank you so much for taking the time to join us again on the Geekcentric podcast. It really means a lot. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the movie when it
Thank you
comes
so
out.
much, sir. Take care.
Have a good one.